I never believed in near-death experiences. I always thought they were hallucinations, just the brain shutting down, desperate to make sense of the unknown. Stories people told themselves to ease the fear of death. That was before it happened to me. Before I died. Before I saw what was waiting beyond the veil. Now, I can never go back to the way I was, because what I saw changed everything. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. I woke up to the scent of fresh coffee drifting through the air, sunlight filtering through my bedroom window. The world outside hummed with the usual sounds, cars passing by, birds singing, life moving forward. There was no warning, no eerie premonition, no sign that today would be the last day of my life. I went through my morning routine, checking my phone, answering emails, kissing my wife goodbye as I grabbed my keys. My mind was occupied with deadlines, meetings, things that seemed so important at the time. I had no idea that within hours, none of it would matter. I was driving on the highway, humming along to a song on the radio. The road stretched before me, bathed in golden afternoon light. Everything was normal. Then, impact. A flash of headlights. The deafening crash of metal twisting and breaking. The sensation of my body being thrown forward, pain erupting through me. And then nothing. Not darkness, not silence. Something else. I was still there, but not in the way I should have been, because I wasn't in my body anymore. I could see it, crumpled against the dashboard, motionless, as smoke curled from the wreckage. I saw the shattered windshield, the way my limbs hung limp, unnaturally still. I should have panicked, I should have screamed, but I felt nothing, just an eerie, weightless calm, and then I felt it. A pull. Not a physical force, but something deeper, more absolute. I turned, without moving, without needing to move, and I saw it. A tunnel, not of light, not exactly. It was alive, a shimmering, pulsing path stretching endlessly before me. It was calling me forward, drawing me in. But at the edges, something was wrong. Dark figures shifted at the borders of the tunnel, watching, whispering. I couldn't make out the words at first. But as the tunnel grew brighter, the whispers became clearer. Turn back. Not yet. You're not supposed to be here. A strange dread settled over me. Why were they stopping me? Wasn't the light supposed to be good? Wasn't it supposed to be peaceful? Then, without warning, the tunnel collapsed, and I was somewhere else, somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, somewhere that showed me the truth. I don't know how to explain what I saw next. I was no longer in time, no longer in the present, the past, or the future. I was somewhere beyond it, witnessing events unfold that hadn't yet come to pass. I saw the world as it is now, cities full of people, living their lives unaware. Then a shift, a darkness creeping in, not like nightfall, but something deeper, something that consumed the light. It slithered through streets, through homes, through minds, and yet no one noticed at first. Then I saw him, a man, a leader, a figure the world adored. His voice was smooth, his words like honey, offering peace, offering hope, and the world followed him. But beneath his smile, beneath his promises, something else lurked, something ancient, something wrong. I tried to turn away, to block out what I was seeing, but I couldn't. I was being forced to watch, because this wasn't just a vision, it was a warning. And before I could understand it fully, before I could grasp what it meant, I felt a force pulling me back through the void, back toward my shattered body, back to the moment where everything changed. I gasped as my lungs filled with air, my body jerking back to life, the blinding lights of the hospital, the muffled voices shouting, "He's back!" I had returned, but I knew the truth now. The end is near, and no one is ready. When I opened my eyes again, I was back. In my body, pain surged through me, sharp, burning, too real. Every nerve screamed as if I had been set on fire. My vision was a blur of sterile white hospital lights, machines beeping frantically in the background. I heard voices, doctors shouting, nurses moving quickly, someone crying. But I wasn't fully here. Not yet. Because my mind was still, trapped in the echo of what I had seen, the darkness creeping over the world, the man who wasn't just a man, the whispers in the tunnel telling me to turn back. I tried to speak, to tell someone, anyone what had happened, but my throat was raw, and the words wouldn't come, and even if they had, who would believe me? In the days that followed, the accident was all anyone talked about. You were clinically dead for 3 minutes. That's what the doctors told me. 3 minutes without a heartbeat. 3 minutes where I should have been gone forever. 3 minutes where I saw the end. At first, I convinced myself it had all been a hallucination, just my brain firing off last signals as it shut down. That's what science would say, right? But that explanation didn't fit, because the visions wouldn't leave me. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back. There, floating above my body, staring into the tunnel, watching the world unravel into something I couldn't explain. And the worst part, the feeling that it wasn't just a vision, that it was already starting. I couldn't forget his face, the man I saw in my vision. He wasn't famous. He wasn't a politician or a billionaire, not yet. But in my vision, the world knew him, worshipped him. He spoke with a kind of authority that made people feel safe. His words were smooth, his presence commanding. He had the answers to everything, the solutions no one else could offer. But it was all a lie. Beneath the carefully crafted image, there was something else, something old, something patient. And the world was walking into its trap willingly. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my recovery, on the physical pain rather than the memories that haunted me. But then I started noticing things. Little things at first. People acting differently, not in an obvious way, but in a subtle, creeping kind of way. There was more division than ever before, more hatred, more fear, but there was also something else, a longing, a desperate hunger for someone to fix it all. People wanted peace. They wanted security. They wanted a leader who would take control and make the chaos stop. And I realized, this is exactly what I saw. The world is being prepared for him, for the moment when he will step forward and offer everything we've been conditioned to crave. And when he does, people will follow him blindly. Then something even stranger started happening. I began to feel things I had never felt before. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and I was suddenly aware of a battle happening just beneath the surface of our reality. At first I thought I was losing my mind, but then I noticed the patterns. I could feel when a place was heavy with something dark, something unseen but present. I could sense when someone was being influenced, when their anger or despair wasn't entirely their own. And I could feel the other side too, the light, the warriors who stood in opposition to the darkness, fighting with weapons not made of steel, but of faith. I realized something terrifying then. The war isn't coming, it's already here. Most of us are just too distracted to see it. I knew I had to do something, but what? I wasn't a preacher. I wasn't some prophet or theologian. I was just a man who had seen too much. But then I remembered the last thing I heard before I woke up. A voice, not my own. A voice filled with sorrow, but also urgency. They must be warned. Time is shorter than they think. I don't know who the voice belonged to, but I knew it was right. People needed to wake up, because the deception is already here, and soon the final choice will be upon us all. I still don't know why I was given this vision. I wasn't religious. I wasn't searching for answers. If anything, I was just another person lost in the distractions of everyday life, too caught up in the temporary to consider the eternal. But after what I saw, I can never go back. Because when I died, I saw the truth, and it's coming faster than anyone realizes. The moment my heart stopped, I felt it, like a force ripping me away from the physical world. I was no longer in my body, no longer bound by pain or time. At first I felt nothing but peace, a strange, overwhelming sense of weightlessness, as if I had been freed from something I never realized was holding me down. Then I saw it, the tunnel. It stretched before me, glowing, pulsing with an energy that was both familiar and alien. It was beautiful, but I wasn't alone. The shadows lurked at the edges, watching, waiting. And then, the whispers. "Turn back. Not yet. You must see." I should have been afraid, but I wasn't, because deep down, I knew, whatever was happening, it was real. More real than anything I had ever known, and so I moved forward, or rather I was pulled forward, drawn by a force I couldn't resist. The tunnel expanded, and suddenly, I wasn't just traveling. I was witnessing something. I saw the past, the present, and something else, something that hadn't happened yet. And what I saw shook me to my core. I saw the world as it is now, fractured, chaotic, people desperate for stability. Then I saw him again, the leader from my first vision, the man the world adored. But now I understood. His words were beautiful. His promises sounded perfect. He gave people what they wanted: peace, security, unity. And they loved him for it. But beneath the surface, I saw something else. An entity, ancient, patient, cunning. It wasn't just using him, it was him, or rather he was its vessel. And the world had no idea. One by one, nations surrendered to him. Governments welcomed him. Even churches, those who should have, known better, embraced him. Because he didn't oppose religion, he redefined it. Faith became about him, and those who refused to bow, they were cast aside, silenced, or worse. And as I watched, I realized the truth. This wasn't just a vision of the future, it had already begun. Then the scene changed. I was no longer watching the world, I was above it, standing in a space that defied all understanding. And before me, a war raged, not a war of nations, not fought with bombs or armies, a war beyond the physical. I saw beings of light, their armor radiant, their weapons forged from something more powerful than steel. They fought against creatures made of darkness, twisting, shifting figures that moved like smoke, yet struck with terrifying force. And then I saw humans among them, people, men and women, clothed in the same light, wielding weapons of faith. They weren't fighting with swords, they were fighting with prayers. And that's when I understood. Every genuine prayer, every cry of faith, every whispered plea became a weapon in this battle. And those who prayed without doubt, their weapons shone brighter, their strikes more powerful. But then I saw something else. Some warriors fell, not because they were weak, but because the prayers that once supported them had stopped. I saw prayers fading, doubt creeping in, people giving up, faith growing cold, and as the prayers ceased, the darkness advanced. I watched as warriors who once stood strong began to fall, overwhelmed by the tide of shadows, not because they were outnumbered, but because those on earth had stopped fighting for them. And then I heard the voice, a voice that wasn't just sound, but truth itself. They do not see. They do not understand their power. They must be warned. And with those words, I was pulled forward again, faster, deeper, until I stood at the edge of something even greater. I can't describe what I saw next, not with human words. It was a place, a presence. It wasn't just light, it was truth. It wasn't just power, it was justice. And before it I saw souls, millions. Some stood in peace, their faces radiant, their names called with love. Others stood in terror, their eyes filled with regret as the truth became undeniable. Because here there were no excuses, no lies, no pretending, only truth. And the deceiver, the leader I had seen, the one the world had followed, stood there too. His confidence was gone. His charm, his power, it vanished in the presence of the true king. And for the first time he screamed, because he knew his time was over. And then the voice spoke again, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in finality. "It is done." And everything changed. I gasped as I was ripped away from the vision, pulled back through time, through space, back into my body. I woke up in the hospital, lungs burning, my heart hammering against my ribs. But I knew I had seen what was coming, and I had been sent back for one reason: to warn you. Because time is shorter than we think. The deception is already here, and soon the world will be given a choice. Not a political choice, not a financial one, a spiritual choice, the final one. And when that moment comes, will you see the truth, or will you be deceived? When I woke up in that hospital bed, I knew I wasn't the same person anymore. I had seen too much. I had been given a warning, one that I could never ignore. But here's the hardest part. Most people won't believe me. They'll say it was just a dream, a hallucination, a side effect of trauma. But deep down, they feel it too. You feel it. Something is changing in the world. You don't have to be religious to see it. The division, the deception, the slow, steady pull away from truth, and the rising hunger for someone, anyone, to bring peace at any cost. The stage is already being set, and soon the final choice will be placed before all of us. This isn't about fear, it's about truth. You have to ask yourself, will you be ready when the deception comes? Will you recognize it for what it is? Or will you be one of the many who embrace it, blind to what's really happening? Because here's the terrifying part. It won't feel like a mistake. It will feel right. It will feel good. It will feel like the answer we've all been waiting for. That's why so many will fall for it. They won't realize the truth until it's too late. Maybe you were meant to hear this. Maybe you were led here for a reason. I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. The time is shorter than we think. And soon, every person, every nation will have to choose. There won't be time to hesitate. There won't be time to debate. By the time most people realize what's happening, the choice will have already been made. So I ask you now, when that moment comes, will you see the truth, or will you fall for the lie? This is not just a story, it's a warning. I was sent back to tell you. Now the choice is yours. Wake up before it's too late.